Hi, I just wanted to take 2 to 3 minutes of your time today to encourage you and exhort you with these words: don't pervert the gospel. The gospel is the power of God unto salvation. People are trying to find power through things like fasting and praying and giving and sacrificing and doing deals with God and all that sort of thing. But actually, God's power is in the gospel. If you believe the gospel, His power will work mightily in your life. And that's why Satan hates the gospel. Today he's getting a lot of people distracted from the gospel. Christians are focusing on things like political commentary, COVID-19, whether we should vaccinate or not vaccinate, and all these issues. And he's getting us away from that unique message which God has entrusted to the church, the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, when Paul wrote to the Galatians, he was an angry man. It's not because the Galatians were distracted, but because the gospel amongst them had become perverted. Let me explain that. This is a very important point. You see, after Paul founded the church there, he left a group of believers that were rejoicing in Jesus. They had peace, they had joy, they had freedom and liberty. And then after he left, some Judaizers came and said, look, it's good that you believe in Jesus, but now you've got to keep the law. And so what happened is they started to get their focus off Jesus and on their law keeping. And so Paul says, you've departed from the gospel of grace. God called you into His grace, and you've left that grace of God, and you've got into this mixture of grace and works as a focus for trusting God to bless you. But God doesn't bless us because of our works, dear friends. He doesn't bless us because we are good. He blesses us because He is good. The gospel is something that took place before we were even born. It's not what we do here. It's what He did there at the cross through our Lord Jesus Christ. Believe on that, and God's power will work in your life. And so he said the gospel had been perverted. Now, I looked at that word pervert in the Greek. It's the word metastrapho. And it means to change or to turn something into the complete opposite of what it originally was. And that's what they did. Salvation is by grace, is by looking to Jesus and Jesus only and trusting in Him. But they turned it into a joint effort. It's about what Jesus has done and about what you do. Bring those two things together, and that's the gospel. They perverted the gospel. They changed it into the exact opposite of what it was. That word actually, metastrapho, is only used 3 times in the Bible. Here in Galatians chapter 1. Peter used it in Acts chapter 2 when he speaks about the sun will be turned into darkness, the exact opposite. The sun gives light, but the sun will be turned into darkness. James uses it in James chapter 4, where he speaks about those whose laughter will be turned into mourning, the exact opposite. Now, this is what they were doing with the gospel. The gospel is the power of God unto salvation. If you look to Jesus, if you trust in Him and Him alone, then His power will work in your life. And so I exhort you today to keep your focus on Jesus. It's all about what He has done for you and is doing in you. And it's by grace alone, through faith alone, that we are saved and that we're transformed into His glorious image. Dear friends, please do not pervert the gospel.